Hey, everybody, welcome to this episode of the Jason Wright Show. Best Friday ever. This is where we just cover whatever the heck is on my circus clown show of a mind. And I've got a lot on it today. So first of all, I got to tell you how the morning started out. And I'm sure some of you can relate to this. All right, so a word of advice. Don't start your morning out by calling and trying to argue about your electric bill. So I'm with Jexa Energy. That's Gexa Energy, and Jexa Energy, and I think you can find them. Let's see, where can you find Jexa Energy? Make sure I think it's just Jexa.com, Gexa.com. You can learn more about their company right there. I called this morning because my electric bill, my base rate per kilowatt, which is supposed to be 8.9 cents, has almost doubled the last 2 months. And I'll admit, last month I was lazy. I was like, that's way too high, but I'm lazy. It is 100 degrees nearly every day here in Texas. And so just blew it off. Well, it came again this week or this month. And I'm like, all right, I got to figure out what's going on. And I noticed that my base rate, which was supposed to be, according to the plan that I'm on, 8.9 cents, was like 15.01 cents per kilowatt. And I bet you didn't think you'd tune into the podcast and hear about electric rates, did you? Well, congratulations there, Timmy. You have reached the Jason Wright Show, where you get to listen to Jason bitch about his electric bill. Improve always and always. All right, so nice little sip of coffee there for those of you listening. So I'm like, okay, well, this is ridiculous. 8.9 cents, 15.01. Then you put in the delivery charges. We're talking, 19 cents per kilowatt hour. Like those are like commercial rates that I used to pay on my office building. I'm like, this can't be right. And so I called to find out what's going on. And I even did the due diligence. I checked to see, okay, what is my plan? Has my contract expired? Heads up, whenever your electric bill goes through the roof, same thing with your cable bill. They're not going to tell you most of the time, because they know that if you don't notice that your good contract expired, they can get you on the month to month for a while, and they can jack your price up. They're not going to do much to really alert you to that. And so I thought, well, maybe my old contract expired. And I looked, nope, it's good till 2023. So I call, and come to find out, and this is one of the things that you need to understand about your electric rates. And I guess as I thought through it, the business model with cell phones is kind of the same thing in the data plans. I'm like, this plan, if I basically don't use my air conditioner, or use my electricity, I get a $100 credit, okay? And it averages out to 8.9 cents as a base rate per kilowatt hour. Well, I mean, I'm going to use way more electricity. So shame on me. Now, I'm not going to be one of these people that goes and, writes a letter to the White House and gets, gets Congress involved because I have been taken advantage of. I just didn't know. I was incapable of reading the plan. No, it was on me. If I had just done the due diligence to look and say, okay, Jason, you're signing up a plan that requires a certain amount of usage to get this rate, and you rarely use that amount of usage, so you're probably going to always go over. So that's shame on me. So first and foremost, okay, I take responsibility for that. But here's where the frustration got in. I asked the guy that I was talking to, God bless him, I must have asked him 20 times, can you just tell me, have I ever had a month? I don't have my bills in front of me. You have all my usage. Is there one time where I have ever met the requirements to get this good rate that I signed up for, this teaser rate? And he kept repeating to me, well, if you go over this amount of usage, then your rate, you don't get the $100 credit, and you pay this much per kilowatt. I'm like, I get that. But here's the thing, before we even got into that, I'm like, so wait a minute, you're telling me this. And this, kids, this is where old Uncle Jason is going to teach you something about your electric bill. I said, so you're telling me that in your business, if my volume of use is greater than it's supposed to be, not only do I have to pay for using a greater volume, but my per unit cost is going to go up as well. I said, that's like me going to the green beans, it's like going to Costco and them saying, hey, Mr. Wright, if you only buy this small bag of green beans, then you will get a credit against your green beans. But if you buy an entire pallet of green beans, not only is that going to be a lot more volume, but we're going to charge you more per green bean. I'm like, that makes no economic sense. I've never heard of any situation where that was the case, where the more you buy, the more you pay per unit as opposed to getting a quote unquote volume discount. So I went back and forth with this knucklehead trying to explain the economics of the situation, why it didn't make sense to me. Then, and every time I would say, hey, can you just go back through my history and give me one instance where I've actually hit the number? Why does he keep talking about his electric bill? I'm going to wrap this up, folks. I kept going back to, can you just show me one instance in which I have actually met the requirements? And he found 1 month. It was June. And so I'll admit, I said, okay, dude, look, here's what you do. The next time you have a customer like me call, pull up my usage from the time this contract started through today and go, yep, Mr. Wright, you're right. You're kind of taking it in the shorts during these horribly hot summer months. That's right. You've gone over every time. But if you look back to when you signed your contract back in March and then April and then, May, June, you only used this much electricity. You didn't go over your allotted amount and you got the $100 credit. And so in the aggregate, you're actually only paying this much per kilowatt hour. That would have caused my blood pressure to stay so much lower than what it was. But here's the lesson from old Uncle Jason. Here's how you improve your freaking electric consumption and bill and contract knowledge always and always, kids. Look at your usage and figure out, am I stuck in a situation where the more I use, the more the per unit cost goes up? Just know your contract. And finally, by the way, guys, this is where it just got Jimlin's walking back and forth. Even Cotton ran to the other room. He didn't even want to hear me anymore. He was sick of listening to me explain. I understand my contract. I know what I have signed up for. Quit. I had to tell the guy, please stop explaining my agreement to me. I know my contract better than you do. Oh, and then, by the way, he told me if I wanted to, I actually could go to Jexa. That's Jexa.com, Jexa Energy. By the way, did I mention I'm talking about Jexa Energy? He told me, I don't know how many times, you can actually go and check your energy usage. Okay, so folks, I don't know about you. I'm kind of a busy guy. I got a lot going on. Do any of you actually go out and go, ooh, I wonder how much electricity I've used up to this? What's my daily usage? But and if you did, what would you do with that information? Would you really go, okay, well, turn all the lights off, turn the air conditioner off. We're going to be hot. I mean, it's just, I get it. And Jimlin and I, we set the timers. We try to be just efficient and try to handle it. But that wasn't enough. And I'm not going to go beyond. That's what I told this guy. I said, look, dude, we have the timers set at different times a day. We do all that. But no, I'm not going to go check my usage by the, I've got too much going on to be worried about that. So anyway, that's my rant on electric bills for the day. But I got more rants to go, baby. I am wired for hot. I told Jimlin when I dropped her off at Hot Tots this morning, most mornings I do have the pleasure of taking Mrs. Wright to the store. And that's a sweet thing too. Hey, if you guys want to nurture your relationship and make it kind of, take it up a notch, make it awesome, try to figure out a way where you can only use one vehicle most of the time. I know that's almost impossible for a lot of you, but if you can do that, it is really, it's good. It's just good kind of bonus quality time. And so I get to take Mrs. Wright to the store most mornings. And so I did this morning. I told her, I said, man, I don't know what's going on in the universe, but it keeps just punching me right in the crotch. And it was, or I wrote about in the Vitruvian letter, I had an incident with a neighbor not too long ago. And then poor Rylan, our oldest, she called me asking for job advice. And I just went into full blown, I'm dad, I know everything mode, just be quiet and listen. Whew, I have been on a tear. And then I gotta, where's my phone? I gotta read you guys something else. So I'm gonna switch to a very positive note. I had one of the best Thursday nights ever last night because, let me back up. I gotta tell you a cool story, really cool story. So I guess it's been about a year and a half ago. I'm listening to the James Altucher Show, one of my favorite podcasts of all times. And he's talking to this guy named James Quandall, who James Altucher, there's two Jameses here, so just bear with me. James Altucher has chosen James Quandall to participate in his It was called like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? I'll Make You a Millionaire Mentor, something to that degree, where the idea was James Altucher was going to mentor, I think, like 4 or 5 people on ways to become a millionaire over the next 12 months. Well, one of them was James Quandall. And so I'm listening to the show, and I'm listening to this James Quandall guy, and by the way, I do a fantastic James Quandall impersonation. So if James, if you hear this, I hear your voice, and I'm like, there is James Quandall, and he is talking to James Altucher about his Amazon business and trying to scale that into a training course. That is my James Quandall impersonation. If you've never actually heard James Quandall in person, or you didn't go to the James Quandall show, listen to his fantastic podcast, and you will see it's pretty awesome, my impersonation. And so I'm listening to Altucher talk to this guy, and at the end of it, James Altucher, he's like, well, so, I mean, if you want anybody to reach you, how do they reach you? And so Quandall says, well, they can email me. And so he shares his email address. And I thought, I'm going to reach out. I'm going to see what this guy's got going on. I do business advisory. He's scaling a business. And it sounds to me like he's a lot like me. Entrepreneur, starting a podcast, want to do some things. Let's just see what happens. I emailed James Quandall, and we set up a Zoom meeting just to kind of have like a little, hey, how's it going? Brainstorming session. That first call, I want to say, went like 2.5 hours. And I mean, from that date, I think it's been over a year now forward, we have developed one of the closest friendships that I have. Every once in a while, James and I will just have a call where we encourage each other, because being a creator, doing this show, doing the Vitruvian Letter, writing books, it's a very lonely space, and you don't get a lot of feedback. And a lot of the feedback you get might be bad. There are plenty of people that are willing to just tell you suck. And there's also a lot of people that are willing to say, hey, I really enjoy what you're producing, but the feedback loop can be really slow. And so it's always good to have somebody else that's going through that to go, God, do you just feel like, is this all a waste of time? And so James has kind of been that friend. And then it's literally become one of those iron sharpening iron type friendships. A good brother who also happens to be a Christian, so we can talk about that. And then last night, he and Emily, his wife, they were in Dallas for the Pod Movement Convention, which I did not attend. And so we planned for Jemlyn and I, after we closed or left the store last night, to go over and meet them for dinner. And it was just awesome. And so, James, if you happen to listen to this episode, to you and Emily, thank you for a fantastic evening. And to you folks, I mean, look, I am the most reclusive, antisocial person you'll ever meet. I am a major introvert disguised as an extrovert. If you meet me, you'll think, God, that guy never meets a stranger. I have no inhibitions. I am a clown. I do stuff like this. I'm always kind of outward facing, but honestly, I don't like being around people. Jemlyn and I, we are very, very, we always like to say we kind of live in our own little bubble. We don't do a lot of socializing. And so it was kind of it was really out of character for she and I to drive all the way to Dallas at night to go have dinner with some folks that I'd never met in person, and more rewarding it could not have been. It was so great being with James and Emily. So to you out there, folks, I know you guys are probably a lot smarter than me. I set the bar pretty low in that regard, but this is just one of those, just from a guy who does not do enough to nurture friendships and relationships. I can tell you, it is such a great thing to do. We are made to be in relationship with other people. It is such a healthy and positive thing when you find people, also the right people. James Quandall is that right kind of person. He makes me better. He edifies me. He and I can talk and lift each other up. It's not just a getting together and, talking about how bad the world sucks, life sucks, politics suck. It's more like, what are you doing to optimize your life for good, for getting the most out of this thing as possible? So I encourage you, men, go find those other men that you can have those iron sharpening iron moments with. Ladies, find other women. I've told one of my little brothers who's had a lot of trouble in his life. And he has always surrounded himself with horrible people, essentially. And he has, in fact, had a horrible go of it for 40 years. And I've told him, as has often been said, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So you've got to be so selective with those 5 people that you really spend time with. And you need to be discerning. Are these people that share your worldview, that share your values, that are ambitious, that are themselves not trying for vainglory to do great things, but are trying to make the world around them a better place? Do they have good relationships beyond their friendship with you? Be very discerning, very selective in curating the people you spend time with. And last night, my heart was just full getting to spend time in person finally with James and Emily, and then having Jimlin there. It was just really a fantastic evening. But I wanted to mention something else to you. Okay, so actually James had sent this to me. So Pod Movement is, for those of you who just consume podcasts, you're not in this world of being on this side of the microphone, probably means nothing to you, but there's a conference that happens every year called Pod Movement. And what it is basically a convention where podcasters all get together, and there's vendors there. Like, there's all kinds of people trying to sell us stuff all the time, different audio editing equipment, microphones, whatever the case may be. And then also how to market your podcast, and just a networking event, typical convention. Well, it turns out, and I didn't go this year. I just thought, quite frankly, I just said, well, I just don't really want to do that. And James is going, so I'll get my notes from James Quandal. And if I find out that I've really, really missed something, then next year it's in Denver, and Abby will probably still be up there, and I'll head up to Denver and go to it there. But now I'm not so sure I'm ever going to attend a Pod Movement convention. And here's why. I get this text from James Quandal because we're talking about, and he and I, we were talking a lot about the Daily Wire. If you don't know what the Daily Wire is Ben Shapiro's network, where, he has a publishing arm. It's where Jordan Peterson, all of his content is now housed. The Michael Knowles Show. Who else? Gosh, I'm drawing a blank now. Candace Owens. It's very conservative. Okay, it's a conservative streaming platform. That's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm not here to talk about the politics of Daily Wire and the nature of their content per se. What I am here to say is this. Daily Wire, as a content creator and as a podcasting digital content network, is quickly becoming one of the largest forces in new media. They are huge. What Jeremy Boring, by the way, happens to be a fellow Texan. So Jeremy, well done, sir. What he and Ben Shapiro are building over there is the model for new media. They're making movies. They're publishing books. They're putting unbelievable talent together for their podcasts. And so they're kind of the model. There's so much to be learned. And look, if you are somebody that, I'm not sure what network, Pod Save America, which is a very liberal podcast. I'm not sure if they're a part of a network or they're standalone. I don't really know. But there's something that even that the liberals that are completely the antithesis of Daily Wire could look at and go, all right, we can't stand Ben Shapiro and what he says and what he does, and Andrew Klavan and all those guys. We don't, Matt Walsh, we're not into the content they create, but the business model, we should copy that. In fact, a great example of a very large 800-pound gorilla that thought that they could just kind of duplicate what Daily Wire is doing was CNN, with CNN Plus, which was a $300 million failure. And so Ben Shapiro himself, and if I'd known Ben Shapiro was going to be there, because I happen to like Ben Shapiro. I think he's funny. I think the content is good that he creates. I've seen one of the movies that they produced. I thought it was very well done. And by the way, I've been reading Ben Shapiro's work since he was like, he started a syndicated column when he was like 16 years old. I mean, the dude is wicked smart, regardless of whether you agree with his politics or not. But so he showed up at Pod Movement, and this is crazy. So I get this story from James. Ben Shapiro's presence at Podcast Movement Convention sparks Twitter dust-up. And by the way, any of you listening to this that you know, the only thing you're probably going to know about Pod Movement now, and so Pod Movement, I guess, leaders, administration, organizers, this is the only damn thing that you're going to really be known for as a result of what you did for this whole convention. Ben Shapiro's presence at Podcast Movement Convention sparks Twitter dust-up. Some podcasters objected to Shapiro hosted the Ben Shapiro Show podcast showing up Wednesday at a booth for the Daily Wire. Conservative political commentator Ben Shapiro's appearance at the Podcast Movement's apology appearance at the Podcast Movement's apology for his presence became the biggest headline to emerge from the podcast group's convention in Dallas, Texas so far. They actually apologized for him being there. And so now the only thing that you're going to really hear about the Podcast Movement convention is that they apologized because there were some people there that did not agree with what Ben Shapiro has to say and his politics. So therefore, he shouldn't be there. Now listen to me. We're talking about one of the most influential new media figures on planet Earth shows up to this convention that's probably, let's face it, it's Pod Movement. It's not exactly a global phenomenon where people are clamoring to get there, okay? If you looked at the list of speakers, Mark Cuban was one of the speakers. They had some decent speakers, but bottom line is this is not like something that is well known. And you've got someone who has essentially created and executed what will become the new model for network media. He's there. So you're able to, even if you hate his politics, you're able to go, bite your tongue and go, okay, but how did you build it? How can I go build something like this for my left-leaning podcast? How can I go build a network like what Daily Wire has done for my sports network, for my cooking network, whatever the case may be? But because there were some attendees pissing and moaning about Ben Shapiro being there. And here's the thing I can almost guarantee you, and I usually don't talk about this sort of thing, but be honest with yourself. Let's just be honest. And I hate to do the what about all that crap and the hypotheticals. I'm just going to say right here, right now, I don't like doing what I'm about to do, but I can't help it. If MSNBC had launched some sort of streaming service and was creating digital assets that were housed in a podcast format, kind of like what Daily Wire is doing, and they were really, and they showed up, can you even really fathom a conservative or a libertarian attendee going and pissing and moaning to the extent that the organizers thought they had to apologize that Rachel Maddow had showed up at Pod Movement? Could you really imagine that? And I'm going to tell you why this happened and why this is happening more and more. And to my left-leaning friends out there, I would like for you to really tune in. Listen to your buddy Jason, because you know me and you know the conversations we have. I guess it was Charles Krauthammer once explained it really well. He said the difference between liberals and conservatives at this point is this. Conservatives think liberals are wrong, that their ideology and their hope for how we construct our government are wrong. Liberals think conservatives are evil. That's a vast difference. So see, I can get into the understanding of why the organizers felt this need to apologize for Ben Shapiro's presence is because in their mind and the people that were complaining, they're like, oh my gosh, that guy is evil. He's not just wrong. He is evil. He is a bad human being. And let me tell you something, folks. We have got to stop this crap. We have got to stop this. where you take someone and you call them evil and they should be shut up and shut down just because you disagree with their political point of view. And it goes both ways. It goes both ways. And I would be saying the exact same thing if at, I guess what, CPAC in DC, the big conservative conference, if some wild liberal showed up there and you had conservatives trying to say, no, you don't belong here, get out of here, I'd be like, you're freaking crazy. You're nuts. Especially if it's more, this was not a ideological, this was not a climate change summit. This was not a transgender awareness summit. This was not a feed the children summit. This was not some social movement. This is a business conference, and the business is podcasting and digital media. And Ben Shapiro and Daily Wire, what he and Jeremy Boring have built, whether you agree with him or not, is more successful than anything any of those clowns in that organized pod movement have ever created in their lives. So essentially what they did was they said, hey, we're sorry that we created an event that drew to it one of the single most successful people in the history of the world that has done what you people are trying to do. What they should have said was, hey, you may not like it, but learn from him. Just ignore the message, but look at the business model and figure out how you can create something to compete with it. Because let me tell you something. Let me tell you what they're doing at Daily Wire. Let's talk about Ben Shapiro's strategy. Ben Shapiro, if you look at what Daily Wire is doing, they realize Hollywood hates conservatives. Most movies these days are going to be very preachy and woke, and some people love that. Some people, that's their sermon. That is their version of, Fireproof, or some Kirk Cameron movie, or God is Real. Okay. So Christians make movies like God is Not Dead or Fireproof or something like that. Liberals like to make movies that are woke. That's their religious movie. Okay, cool, fine. But you know what? Because Hollywood has a monopoly on making movies, most of the movies are going to be the religion of woke, right? Okay, so where's the alternative? Well, Ben Shapiro has built a mechanism that's big enough and well-funded enough to create content that's for basically not the woke, not the religious right, but just people who miss getting to watch good stories like Maverick. That was just look at the success. It's $1 billion movie. Why is it so successful? It's because it was something that left, right, I don't know what the hell I am. I don't care what I am. All of them could come in, sit down, and be entertained, which is what movies used to be for. So Ben Shapiro has created such a massive organization that he can now compete with, for crying out loud, Hollywood. Are you kidding me? So if I'm on the left, I would go, I want to go learn his playbook. So I'm glad I came to Pod Movement. Thank you, Pod Movement organizers, that you were taken seriously by the 800-pound gorilla of streaming, podcasting, publishing, filmmaking, everything to counter what we believe. I don't like his message, but the business model works. Good job. Wow. Pod Movement. I'm glad I came. Instead of that, they decided to go, no, he shouldn't be here. We don't like him. And Pod Movement organizers apologized? Are you freaking kidding me? I'm glad I didn't go. I am so glad I didn't spend my money there. I'm so freaking glad. And now I won't. I'm not going to go there. You know what I will do? Look, I would probably get more value out of just looking at different business models. There's someone else that I picked up on. What's this guy? Let me see if I can pull up on you. There's a guy that is doing about the same thing that Ben Shapiro is doing as far as building out a network. And it's more business related. I never can remember this guy. He's just come on my radar. I'm sorry, guys. He's out in Florida. You probably know who I'm talking about. He's on the Valuetainment is his network. I'll figure it out. Let me see. Maybe I've got Valuetainment. Bear with me. I know you're not supposed to have any data. Here we go. Valuetainment. And let me see here. This is really frustrating. This is really frustrating because I can't find the founder's name, but Patrick something. Anyway, so if he had come to, I don't know if he's not big enough. Essentially, I don't think. I mean, he the guy that owns Valuetainment and starting it, whose name I really wish I would have had on here. It's funny. You can never find what you want when you really want to find it, can you? He's doing the same thing. So I'm watching his business model get created. I've watched Daily Wire from its inception, which essentially was started by Jeremy Boring and Ben Shapiro in their in a pool house, I think. And it's quite remarkable. But instead of going and trying to learn from them and remember why you're there, that you're not there to go to a woke revival. Instead, you're going to a business conference to go learn from somebody who's done the business better than you've ever thought about doing it. Because I can tell you, most of the people that go are like guys like me that have a little podcast or you're trying to figure things out. Instead of bitching about one of the most successful podcasters that's ever lived being there, why don't you go, how can I learn from that person? And if your response is because I think they're evil and they need to be shut down, then your definition of evil is what is destroying the fabric of American society. Your definition of what is evil, which is essentially anything that hurts your damn feelings, is anything that you hear that you don't like. Anything that makes you uncomfortable is destroying the fabric of American society. And I say that to both sides. Anytime you start to tell people you should not be heard from, you should not be seen because I don't like the things that you say, how are you going to get rid of the bad apples if you never see them? How are you going to know that they're bad if they only are able to exist in darkness where they grow mold and all of a sudden you end up with some horrible infection of your soul because they've been out there all along. They just stay behind closed doors. You know, I just think that when I read that, I was like, you got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. But whatever. So, all right. So I'm going to go over this afternoon, talk to my boy, Josh Tomlin. So some of you have asked, where's the Josh Tomlin show? What's going on? Why have you not put that out yet? So Josh is a busy man, even as I don't know if I would call Josh a full-blown retired Major League Baseball player, because I have a feeling if the right opportunity came along and Miss Carly said it was okay that the boy would be on the mound again. That's just me. But anyway, going to go talk through some ideas with Josh, so be looking for that. And there were some other news that I wanted to. Oh, Patrick David Bett. PDB podcast, that's Valuetainment. He's the one that's building a network of, so essentially he'll go and he'll find a podcast that's getting some legs, getting a bunch of downloads, put it under his umbrella. He's starting a media company. Watch out for that one. More business related, does do some political commentary, but not quite as just full-blown political conservative editorial content as Daily Wire. But PDB, Patrick David Bett, very worth the listen. So if I were you guys, I would check that one out. Oh, here's the last thing I want to bring you guys that I want to be excited about this, but I just can't because I'm worried that it's going to get screwed up. So, and to my buddy, Matt Wagner, Wags over in the UK, have you seen this? They are going to do a Christmas Story sequel. Ralphie is coming back. And if you know anything, so Peter Billingsley has had a very successful career. He played Ralphie. Turns out, he is Vince Vaughn's best friend, who Matt Wagner, that I just mentioned, when we do our Christmas special where we talk about our favorite Christmas movies of all time, he busted my chops last time, because I do have a bit of a man crush on Vince Vaughn, and I was crushing hard that day. It's like every Christmas movie that Vince Vaughn had ever even been in, watched, talked about was kind of like my favorite movie. I admitted it. I got way into a man crush moment on Vince Vaughn during that episode. But Peter Billingsley has been in a lot of Vince Vaughn movies. He's actually in Four Christmases, if you don't know where he is. That is Ralphie. That is the ticket agent at the airport in San Francisco when Reese Witherspoon and Vince Vaughn are trying to go to Fiji. That's Peter Billingsley. He's also in The Breakup with Vince Vaughn. He is the bowling friend. And I think he's been in a couple of others. Was he in? He's actually in Elf. He is one of the elves. So Peter Billingsley has done awesome. Well, he's coming back. And here's what it says. And here's the thing, man. I don't want to be cynical, but I'm like, again, going back to what I said earlier, Hollywood has a monopoly, and it's like, oh my gosh, are they going to take, like, do you guys know that there's like a Home Alone 3 out there? Now, see, back in the day, back in the 80s and early 2000s, before all the movies became, what they are now, where they're going to preach to you about all the things that you should think, say, and feel. Back then, a bad movie was bad. Well, let me see. How do I put it? They just sucked. They would take these horrible kid actors or B actors and they would redo a movie or add a sequel where it just didn't make sense. I mean, Home Alone 3, it's out there. Check me out on it. I've never seen it. I won't see it. I don't want to see it. I'm pretty sure that it's different directors, different everything. But it's out there. So I'm hoping that they're able to respect the amazing, iconic wonder, American treasure that is A Christmas Story, and do this one right. But I'm not optimistic. But the fact that Peter Billingsley's in it, that makes me feel a little bit better. Okay, because here's the thing to know about Vince Vaughn. If Peter Billingsley's in it, Vince Vaughn probably is his Wild West Productions probably had something to do with it. And Vince Vaughn is more of a libertarian guy. He's more of a live and let live kind of guy. And so I'm hoping that translates, but let's see. Here's what the story says. Let me get myself out of the way here. I'll read this. Let's read this story. A Christmas Story sequel will drop this year. Here's when to expect it. Fans got their first introduction to Ralphie's family and friends nearly 40 years ago in the film that would become a Christmas classic, and a sequel to A Christmas Story will drop this year on HBO Max in November. By the way, A Christmas Story is a part of the girls and I's, like it's part of our Christmas morning tradition. So the greatest thing TBS has ever done is, other than broadcast the Atlanta Braves baseball games, is starting at 7:30 on Christmas Eve, they play in a loop A Christmas Story for 24 hours. So since the girls were like really, really little, every Christmas morning in the background is Ralphie and his Red Ryder BB gun, and Ralph and Randy, and it's just awesome. So it's literally part of the background noise of our Christmas mornings. In the highly anticipated film titled A Christmas Story Christmas, fans will check in on grown-up Ralphie, played once again by Peter Billingsley, who must deal with Christmas and all that comes with it, this time as a dad. According to the a description from the streaming site Deadline, reported in a piece published Wednesday. With the same attention to real-life tone of the first, Ralphie reconnects with childhood friends, reconciles the passing of his old man, and sows the seeds for the origins of the beloved holiday classic. The film's long line read per E! News. It will reportedly take place in the 70s. I like that. I'm a kid of the 70s, by the way, and so that's probably why guys like me and the aforementioned Matthew Wagner like this so much. This was a movie when we were kids, and by the way, A Christmas Story was one of those that didn't really gain traction until years after. And I bet somebody could confirm this in the media. I think TBS made A Christmas Story the classic it is by doing the 24 Hours of A Christmas Story. I think they had a lot to do with it. So again, kudos TBS. Ralphie brings his family to this childhood home for the holiday, Variety reported. Aaron Hayes, Juliana Lane, River Droshi, I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, River, R.D. Robb, and Scott Schwartz, along with Zach Ward and Julie Haggerty, also star. I don't know any of those people. You guys probably do. The new movie is directed by Clay Cadis with producers Erwin Zwilling, Mark Tabernoff. I'm not seeing Vince Vaughn. Oh, yes! Kel Boyder, Jay Ashenfelter, whoever that is, Peter Billingsley, and one Mr. Vince Vaughn. So yes, I was right. Vince is one of the producers. There's hope for it. So let's see here. For those who might have somehow missed the original movie, the film follows a kid in the 40s. Ralphie, well, you guys know. I mean, if you don't know, you're probably, go check it out. Come on. If you don't know what A Christmas Story is, I'm sorry. You need help. Regardless, so anyway, A Christmas Story, Christmas debuts on HBO Max November 17th. Okay, so that was probably the worst article reading you've ever experienced, but nevertheless, big news. A Christmas Story, Christmas, November 17th. HBO Max, it's worth. So if you look, if you go to Prime, they'll always give you like that free, like 7 days for free subscription. Mark your calendars. If you're not an HBO Max subscriber, I don't think I am. Mark your calendar to try to get the free 7 days during that time so you can check out A Christmas Story Christmas. I'm so excited by this. So that's all I've got. Look, sorry about the electric rant, and then I was kind of ranty today. I told Jimlin, like I mentioned earlier, that the universe has kind of been kicking me in the crotch, but that's okay. Just dust it off, baby. It doesn't matter. That happens. But it caused me to kind of rant a little bit on this best Friday ever, and it is going to be the best freaking Friday ever because I get to choose that, and I choose for it to be just the best one ever, and I hope you will do the same thing. Hey, thank you guys so much. Check out the Vitruvian Letter this week. It's coming out. And then, next week, I've got a great episode of The Jason Wright Show. I check in with my buddy Mitchell Cohen, who has sold most everything he owns, packed up 2 bags, and is now traveling the globe taking working remotely to a new level for, he doesn't know how long. He's buying one-way tickets. It's awesome. I check in with him in South America and how that's going and what it's been like, as well as all the other stuff that Mitchell and I always geek out on. So check that out this coming Tuesday on the regular episode of The Jason Wright Show. Until I hear from you again, continue to try to improve always and always. Thanks for listening. I'm out.